All right. Hello, everybody. It's me, your favorite, totally off the cuff, not planned at all, live copyright attorney. So I've just found out about this Fortnite lawsuit, which is, you got to say it, it's epic, right? It's absolutely epic, which of course is ironic because that's the name of the company, Epic Games. So I just found out about this epic lawsuit against Apple, and like it's just it's getting right here, like it's right to the heart because I love to see this kind of adjudication. It's not a copyright lawsuit, but of course it has copyright implications, right? So they made they had to, they planned this all out. This has to have been completely planned as a marketing ploy. This is basically a marketing ploy, but there could be some substance to this lawsuit. I'm holding my tablet in my hand here. Is what I'm referring to. So let's see if we can go through what's happened. Epic has Fortnite. Fortnite's a very popular game. The game is on all the different platforms, including the iOS store and the Google Play store. And when you sell your apps on the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS store, you have to agree to their terms of service. I think Apple takes something like 30%. If I recall, I was there for the iPhone. I got an iPhone. I waited like 6 hours in line for an iPhone or something like that. The first one or whatever. I remember, I think it was like 70-30 was the split. I don't know. Did they change that? I don't know if they changed that. The split was like 70-30. So you've agreed. And South Park made a whole episode about this, right? Trey Parker and Matt Stone made a whole episode about the, what was it, this human sent iPad because, you agreed, says Steve Jobs. You agreed. Well, they agreed, didn't they? When they put their app on the App Store, they agreed to abide by the terms of service. So that means no direct payments, no avoiding the 30%, basically. Similar thing with the Google Play Store. I don't remember what the actual cut is. But this lawsuit, and if you want to follow along at home, go find the Apple complaint, the Epic Games versus Apple complaint. It should be everywhere by now. I'm absolutely not prepared to be delivering this to you right now, so that's why I don't have a link for you. Also, I'm on my phone. But it's a good chance for me to try out this rig, see what you think, see if it's actually working properly. So they filed this lawsuit, or I don't know, it doesn't have a case number here. I don't know if it's filed yet or if it's just been released as something they're going to file. There's no case number here. No, you can't see that. Of course, you can't see that because of the auto exposure on the phone. So, Epic Games makes this change. Maybe someone in the chat can give me the exact nature of the change, but what I had read was they had changed from payments to Apple to direct payments to Epic. So you go in, you go to make a payment. I guess it was like 20% off V-Bucks or something like that, and you make a payment now, and it goes directly to Epic instead of directly through Apple. Apple takes 30% and then gives Fortnite 70%. And we know that Epic is this way. We know that Epic has tried to undercut the Steam store. Steam takes something like 30%. And so Epic and their games store that we all fight about, they took like 12% or something. So Epic does this. Epic thinks that, they should be a different arrangement. But they signed an agreement, so shouldn't there be that arrangement? Well, so they make this change. Apple removes them from the App Store. Similar thing happened with Google. They made the change. Google removed them from the App Store. I didn't see a complaint against Google yet. Maybe there is one. But you can still sideload Fortnite onto your phone. I'm not even sure if it got removed from your phone at all if you already had it. But it's at least removed from the Apple App Store. And so they've written here a 65-page complaint. Apple monopolizes the iOS app distribution market. Apple has monopoly power. Apple is anti-competitive in their iOS distribution market. They have technical restrictions, contractual restrictions, a lack of pro-competitive justification, and they go over anti-competitive effects of the market. They do the same thing with the in-app processing market. So in-app payments is something else that they're going after, that Epic is going after Apple. Apple's monopoly power in the iOS in-app payment processing market, Apple's anti-competitive conduct in the iOS in-app payment processing market, etc. And there's a part 3, competition in the sale of mobile devices cannot discipline Apple's conduct in the iOS. So what they're saying is they have so little competition in the phone hardware market that it doesn't create a natural incentive or disincentive to create a more open market. Apple's mobile device customers face substantial switching costs and iOS lock-in. I can verify that. I had lost some things when I switched from Apple to Android. And let me tell my story real quick. The reason why I switched, I used to love iOS. The reason why I switched was, one, you see that Android gets features faster. Like, everything that comes to Apple seems to have already been on Android for a while. And maybe at first Apple was the king of the hill, but it quickly was usurped by Google's features. And then two, I had a warranty problem with my iPhone 5, I think it was, and Apple refused to fix it. And I made a big deal about it, but I couldn't get Apple to fix my phone, even though it was a warranty issue. So that was the kind of final straw for me. I bought a Galaxy something and never looked back. Actually, I think I started with an LG V10. I don't remember. And then they have counts here. Count 1, Sherman Act, unlawful monopoly maintenance in the iOS app market. Count 2, Sherman Act, denial of essential facility in the iOS app distribution market. What is the Sherman Act? The Sherman Act is your Sherman Antitrust Act. And I'll bring that up here on my tablet in a second and see if I can talk about it at all. I know next to nothing about the Sherman Antitrust Act, but I have a few things to say about their video. Let's see, there's unreasonable restraints of trade, unlawful monopoly maintenance, unreasonable restraints of trade for in-app payment processing, tying the App Store and iOS distribution to things, and then they go into the California Cartwright Act, which I'm assuming is also a antitrust act, and then they go into California unfair competition law, which we just saw earlier in production today when we talked about the Uber and Lyft case. You'll be getting that one Saturday, I think it is. So the California 17,200 et sequitur or whatever unfair competition law, and Epic seems to have been so well prepared for this. This had to have been a blitz on purpose. That they actually already released an announcement video parodying Apple's 1984 commercial, which itself was not a parody, but it's kind of a satire on George Orwell's 1984. So there's a lot to unpack here. George Orwell's 1984 was a satire itself on how governments are going to end up using information to control people. And so then Apple made a satire of that in 1984 when it released the Macintosh, saying that the Apple Macintosh was going to unlock people from the information, from information control, sort of comparing like PC users to mindless drones, and Apple was going to unlock the creativity of the PC users, and by when they came over to Macintosh, of course. Okay, had a glitch there. Hope we're back. And for those first 20 years, Apple did a really great job. It was only in the 90s that it started to really falter, and then of course there was the epic moment when Bill Gates bailed out Apple in like 2001, and if you had been smart enough to buy Apple stock at $11 a share, you were very wealthy after that. So the complaint is 65 pages. We're not going through it. I'm just going to react to it. But they accuse Google. They accuse Apple of monopolizing the market cap of $2 trillion. They go over the in-app purchases. The anti-competitive consequences of Apple's conduct are pervasive. Mobile computing devices like smartphones and tablets and the apps that run on those devices have become an integral part of people's daily lives as a primary source for news, a place for entertainment, a tool for business, a means to connect with friends, etc., etc., etc. Now, here's my problem with it is that we've always had this kind of like and not environment, ecosystem lock-in. So you're either on the Apple ecosystem, or you're on the Google ecosystem, or you're on the Huawei ecosystem. It used to be Sony. Sony used to lock everybody into everything. You have no idea how much we used to hate Sony for everything being tied to each other. Like you just couldn't. There was no interoperability between Sony products and anybody else, and they've backed off of that a little bit, and that's better now. And none of that was really monopolistic. Apple might not be guilty of having a monopoly, and I'm not defending them. Like if anything, yeah, I think that there should be more competition in this market, and I'd love to see this lawsuit succeed in some meaningful way. But there are reasonable alternatives to being on iOS. You can get a phone from Google. If you don't like Google, you can get a phone from Huawei, who literally can't make any more phones on the Google ecosystem. I'm sure there are other types of alternatives. You could probably build your own from open source stuff as well. But let me see what we can find out about the Sherman Antitrust Act. Antitrust. Wikipedia, thank you. So this is from Wikipedia, which I like to say because, Creative Commons license and all that, right? The Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, so 130 years old, is a United States antitrust law that regulates competition among enterprises. It broadly prohibits anti-competitive agreements. So is Apple's agreement anti-competitive? Sure, I guess. If you think of their agreement as everybody has to sign it, it's anti. That's not what they mean. They mean like if Sony and Apple and Google and I don't know why I'm thinking LG and Samsung all decide, okay, phones are now $2,000. Everybody's phone starts at $19.99. That's what they mean. That's an anti-competitive agreement. You agree not to compete on price, or you agree not to compete on something or other, okay? So we're not talking about is the Apple terms of service agreement anti-competitive. Although that's got to be part of it, right? Like it's how they got there and how onerous is this agreement? Sure, is going to have a thing. Two, it broadly prohibits unilateral conduct that monopolizes or attempts to monopolize a relevant market. So that's the one they're going to be on. If there's a relevant market and if there is unilateral conduct that monopolizes it, yeah, probably. That doesn't tell us anything really, does it? That who knows what a relevant market is? Who knows what attempts to monopolize with unilateral conduct are? So we'd have to go further, and we're not going to do that here. So have a good night. No, let's just take a quick look. The law attempts to prevent the artificial raising of prices by restriction of trade or supply. An innocent monopoly or monopoly achieved solely by merit is perfectly legal, but acts by a monopolist to artificially preserve that status or nefarious dealings to create a monopoly are not. So in other words, according to Wikipedia, if Epic Games, Epic, if Apple has reached its monopoly by merit, that's legal. The purpose of the Antitrust Act is not to protect businesses from the working of the market, it is to protect the public from the failure of the market. The law directs itself not against conduct which is competitive, even severely so, but against conduct which unfairly tends to destroy competition itself. So the argument has to be that Apple's ecosystem is itself anti-competitive, that by locking everyone into the ecosystem, that somehow prevents meaningful competition. I don't think there's anything immediately apparent here that tells me how this could be applied to the Apple case, but then Kaylee brought up a fun question. So then when you have the 1984 book, which is satired by the 1984 commercial, and then Epic turns around and makes their own 1984 commercial, is that some kind of copyright infringement? No, that's going to be a parody or a fair use satire. They're obviously not using Apple's commercial to advertise for Apple. They're not even using it to advertise for themselves, really. Although this whole thing is like one giant advertisement. They didn't. What they did was they mirrored the content that was in the original, and then they made it about Fortnite and Fortnite unlocking the monopoly that is Apple through the same sort of Orwellian, you know, unlocking of the people's minds. So one could definitely see how they copied, but it was for a completely different purpose. They actually didn't use the whole commercial. They used just the parts that they needed. It was very short compared to Apple's, I think it's a 30-second or minute commercial. I think they only had like a 15-second commercial for Fortnite. And certainly Apple's not selling its commercial. I forget which. Yeah, I forget which ad agency made the original. It was a really remarkable commercial, and I don't see any way that Epic commercial usurps the market. So I see this as a fair use. I don't really see it as even close to being on the line. Every person who shall monopolize or attempt to monopolize or combine or conspire with any other person. I just don't see that as the argument that's going to last here. A Section 2 violation has two elements: the possession of monopoly power, okay, and the willful acquisition or maintenance of that power as distinguished from growth or development as a consequence of a superior product. Per se violations are going to be like automatic violations. These violations that meet the strict characterizations of Section 1, okay, so that's not quite what we're looking for, because remember, Section 1 is a agreement which unreasonably restrains competition and which affects interstate commerce. Again, could be an argument made there that Epic is, well, that Epic has been restrained by Apple's unreasonably restrictive agreement, but they didn't have to enter into the agreement. And that's always been the argument against an Apple antitrust argument is, well, you didn't have to participate in our ecosystem if you didn't want to. It didn't make anybody do it. You aren't in any way required to use an iPhone. What happened to Ma Bell? What happened to the Bell antitrust case? Let's look at that one. Bell antitrust case. And I know I'm just going to open up Wikipedia again. I know I'm cheap. In the 1970s, the FCC suspected that American Telephone and Telegraph. Okay, so that was AT&T. I was talking about Bell. Here we go. Yeah, 1982. The breakup of the Bell system was mandated on January 8th, 1982 by an agreed consent decree providing that AT&T Corporation would, as had been initially proposed, relinquish control of Bell operating companies that had provided local telephone service. This effectively took the monopoly that was the Bell system and split it into an entirely separate, several companies. So Pacific, US West, Ameritex, Southwest Bell, Bell South, Bell Atlantic, NYNEX, Southern New England Telephone, and Cincinnati Bell. The divestiture was initiated by the filing in 1974 by the United States Department of Justice, so different here, this is Epic Games, of an antitrust lawsuit against AT&T. AT&T was at the time the sole provider of telephone service throughout most of the United States. So is Apple the sole provider of cellular service throughout the United States? No. Is Apple the sole provider of telephone hardware throughout the United States? No. Is Apple the sole provider of telephone software throughout the United States? No. I'm not, it doesn't look good. I get it though. I get where they're coming from. So let's continue. Furthermore, most telephonic equipment in the US was produced by its subsidiary, Western Electric. This vertical integration, so that's, vertical market. You have all the different parts of the market that support each other vertically. So it's all the supplies, all the uses of the supplies, all the manufacturing and everything in the same vertical market. This vertical integration led AT&T to have almost total control over communication technology in the country, which led to the antitrust case. The plaintiff in the court complaint asked the court to order AT&T to divest ownership of Western Electric, but feeling that it was about to lose, AT&T proposed its own breakup. It proposed that it retain control of Western Electric, the Yellow Pages, the Bell trademark, the Bell Labs, and AT&T Long Distance. It also proposed that it be freed from a 1956 antitrust consent decree previously. In return, it would give up control and ownership of the local operating companies. It argued this last concession would achieve the government's goal of creating competition. So, what would we do here? This was a regional breakup of a national monopolistic telephone company. What does that tell us about the Apple case? Well, I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough in the Apple case to actually break up Apple. Maybe there's a lesser violation that doesn't mean breaking up or anything, but rather that there were anti-competitive practices, that the agreement is onerous, or that somehow Apple has to open its ecosystem. I don't know. Has Google been sued yet? I don't understand. If Google hasn't been sued, I think this tells us one thing. If there is an epic Google lawsuit, then I'm wrong. But I think the silver bullet here is Sideloading. Epic Google lawsuit. Let's see. Fortnite removed from App Store and Google Play. Epic files lawsuit against Apple. Fortnite pulled from Apple and Google. Epic Games is suing Apple. I'm still not seeing a lawsuit against Google. And I think this is because the antitrust argument fails in that you can still sideload Fortnite onto your phone, your Google Android operating system phone, really without any problems, without any interference from Google. But you can't do that on Apple, as far as I know. Somebody in the chat tell me if I'm missed something, but I don't think you can sideload onto iPhones very easily at all. And that maybe Apple takes steps to prevent you from doing that. And if that's true, then I think that's the big takeaway here, is that Apple would maybe need to agree to do something to open the platform just a little further. But I'm also firmly on the side of Apple being its own private business that gets to do its own private business things, and if you don't like it, you can go and go to a different system, a different phone, a different. I mean, heck, you even have Windows at this point. I mean, I know Windows isn't really making. Well, of course, the Surface Duo just got announced and everything. I know that Microsoft isn't exactly known for a good phone. Well, the experience on the phone was actually pretty good. It was the support for it that was bad, is why Windows Phone didn't survive, for me at least. Let's see what their charges are, maybe down here in the section about the counts. So Apple's conduct violates Section 2. Okay, so I was right. It was going to be a Section 2 violation. Apple's conduct violates Section 2 of the Sherman Act, which prohibits monopolization of any part of the trade or commerce among several states with foreign nations. Okay. They conclude that Apple holds monopoly power over the iOS app distribution market. Yeah, probably, if the relevant market is the iOS app distribution market, but I think the court, and of course, I think Apple, are going to disagree that that's the relevant market. The relevant market probably isn't so narrowly focused, and it's probably something more like all smartphone users in the US or something like that. And I think that's going to end up counting Android in there and possibly even Windows Phone. And then there's probably a bunch of phones that have like not smartphone operating systems. So let's see. Apple unlawfully maintains its monopoly power through the anti-competitive acts described above. Great. We skipped over a lot of them because it's very long. Q. Henry Winkler. It's very long. We didn't read it. Their second count is also Section 2, and it's just about the denial of essential facility. Apple unlawfully maintains its monopoly power in the iOS app distribution market through its unlawful denial of Epic and other app distributors of an essential facility, access to the operating system iOS, which prevents them from competing in the iOS app distribution market. I get it that it prevents competition in such a market, but is that market a monopolized market? I don't think it is. Because again, I don't think because again, my definition of market is going to be more broad than theirs. I don't think that the relevant market is only Apple's phones. And that's not because I like it. Like, I love to see Apple lose this. I just don't have an objective perspective where Apple loses this. I definitely have a subjective or biased perspective where I want Apple to lose this, but I don't see Apple losing this under these circumstances. What else? Why could they be doing this? Does this really get them more customers? Does Epic get more customers from using this lawsuit as a publicity stunt? I mean, I'm talking about it. Any of you didn't know who Epic was, you do now. If you didn't know that Fortnite was fighting the battle, you do now. Does that get them more people? They were already the most popular game in the world, or one of them. Kids' parents know what Fortnite is. You can't walk into you can't walk into any grocery store around here that has a section for like toys and games that doesn't have Fortnite toys and games. So I'm not exactly sure that Fortnite or Epic make more money because of this. Arguably, they just removed themselves from the Apple App Store. I don't know. Let's see. Count 3 is a 1. It's a Sherman Act 1. So I just said that wasn't something that I thought would fly, but here's what they're doing. Apple's conduct violates Section 1 of the Sherman Act, which prohibits every contract, combination, in the form of trust or otherwise, or conspiracy, in restraint of trade or commerce among the several states. To reach iOS users, Apple forces developers to agree to Apple's unlawful terms contained in its developer agreement and comply with the App Store review guidelines, including the requirement iOS developers distribute their apps through the App Store. I hear it, but I don't hear where the anti-competitive practice is. In other words, remember I said it's more so for like separate companies agreeing not to compete with each other by setting prices or something like that. If you don't like something on Apple's App Store, well, you go over to a different App Store. Just because the iOS operating system isn't cross-compatible with the Android operating system, I don't see how that's an antitrust violation. Or maybe I'm just misreading it here. Apple's conduct and unlawful yada yada yada. Back to Sherman Act Part 2. Sherman Act 1 then, in the iOS app distribution market and in-app payments. Yeah, okay, we'll get back to work. So this is Apple has sufficient economic power in the tying market, the iOS app distribution market, because the App Store is the sole means by which apps may be distributed to consumers in that market. So basically, their argument seems to be that the app, if you can't sell apps, develop, if you can't develop apps that run on iOS outside of Apple's quote unquote monopolistic ecosystem, that's some kind of antitrust or anti competitive practice. I don't exactly agree. I understand the argument, I think. If I was a developer and I go and develop my app, yada yada, I go and type out my app and I have it all finished and it runs on iPhone and everything, and then I decide, well, I don't want to pay Apple 30%. I want to release my software without paying Apple. I guess that could be some kind of a. I guess that could be some kind of a. I would certainly feel in a way about it. I would like to be able to draft or create one copy of my source code and then export it to various platforms. That could be something that is antitrust or monopolistic. I think Apple has a policy of not allowing you to write source code and then export it into object code for platforms other than iOS. So that seems like it could be something. I'm unclear as to whether that will actually be successful. Let's see, California has a similar Restraints of Trade Act, and so they've alleged that. So that's basically what's going on there. Let's see what the chat has to say. Live chat. All chat messages. Quit Fortnite, play Monopoly. I think that's what they're saying, yes. The FTC threatened to sue because it was their way of blocking Flash export to the iOS. Okay. So maybe that's not a thing that they've done. Maybe they're not really locked in. Barriers to cross use and exclusion do enter into the calculations here. Okay. Apple takes a cut, not just on the sale of the app. Lots of comments on the cat. ADHD Simulator 2015. Yeah, thank you for the summary there for the people who are coming in. I appreciate that. Could Apple argue that the App Store lockout is an integral part of their anti-piracy strategy? That is their argument. They're saying that they do it for quality of life. Android allows third-party apps and app stores and allows anything on their app store that doesn't violate a pretty fair minimum standard. Yeah. All right. So, hi, Joe. Good to see you again. Apple is one of the few companies that doesn't rely on selling user information as part of its business. Okay, it's possible. My wife swooned over the kitty shot. Yes. Oh, but Penny is a very nice kitty, and it's nice to see her so happy sometimes because she just likes to lay around here a lot. Yeah. So I don't know that I have a whole lot more I can say right now. I've got to read through the thing. I've got to brush up on my antitrust law, and I mean, I guess, here's the announcement that if you haven't heard it before, this next week is going to be a pretty crappy week for me to be tackling new cases on unlawful masses. Kaylee and I have successfully reunited here in Luxembourg, and we are going to now get married in person. We already got married remotely. Now we're going to get married in person. The original wedding ceremony that we wanted to have, and so we're going to do that, and that's on Monday. And so, pretty much after I get done with this show and maybe one or two recordings tomorrow, we're going to shut it down Brandon's going to take over production and release of the videos. Thank you very much, Brandon. And we're going to go to our married weekend, our marriage weekend. What do they call it? It's not a honeymoon. The honeymoon is after the marriage, and we're really not really even doing that. I'm probably going to be living in Luxembourg for the foreseeable future, as it is much more peaceful here, and I am trying to do a creative thing here, and I do not do well trying to be creative while also always looking over my shoulder. So I am definitely monitoring the situation back in the US, and I was powerless when I was there. I'm probably still pretty powerless here, but I'll continue to do everything I can to do my part as an American citizen to preserve the democracy. I'll put it that way. Am I a lawyer? Yes, I do still actively practice copyright law. We're involved in several cases right now. It's very nice to be able to conduct business remotely, and I'm very happy with remote work in 2020 and can't wait to just, we don't actually have fiber optic here. This is brought to you by SDSL. So, and we did record the video about the Grennans being arrested in Colombia. That was another good one. That will drop tomorrow. And then I guess whatever I record tomorrow will drop sometime soon. So anyway, that's our show. Hey, you know what? I can do my little outro, right? Thank you to all of you for coming. This is a community-supported legal education channel here on YouTube. It's also on Floatplane and Twitch. And can I get my sponsors up soon enough? No, of course not. Go to files. Files. Of course, they're out of order. Let's do by name. And then we go to our patrons list. And these are also out of order. Let's go to most recent first. August. So this is a community-supported organization, and so we're on Patreon, patreon.com/ljfrench, and sponsors.com/law. And what I do is I read out the names of the people who are $50 plus supporters and greater. Of course, for some reason, this won't open now. Open with. Nope. Of course, it's not going to open. I will do it this way. Yep, there we go. So thank you to the following $50 plus supporters: Nicely Done Defense, Wes Delge, Citizen of the Sovereign, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Evie, Kyle Mudrock, Spirit Bear, Jan Negray, Benjamin Hightoff, Stephen Blackleaf, Cute Grills in Your Area, Longreach Jones, Definitely Not Prenda Law, Ugly Grill, Shiloh T, Rudolph Bescherer Jr., Oscar the Prophet, Jay Dixon, Hot Grills in Your Area, Ammonite, NG, Brandon Abel, Torpedon, and Creative Corruptions. So thank you, everyone, for joining me. I'm going to bed, as it is 3 o'clock in the morning here, and I will probably see you again for a live show. Well, the supporters will get a live show tomorrow when I do production, but after that, we'll see you again next week. I'll be back on Thursday. So, love you all. Thanks for coming. We'll keep you updated on this epic of a lawsuit. So,